So, what do I have against brothels? Well, every country is different. And most countries, except for the exception of New Zealand and New South Wales, Australia, those are the only two places that actually have full decriminalization, which gives the workers the most amount of human rights and the most amount of what the say of what they want, like a voice of their rights, a voice of what they need, and a voice of what they want. Other than that, pretty much every other country has very much strict limitations to the rights of the worker, which puts the workers at a very, very strong disadvantage and a very much advantage over the worker from the point of view of the brothel. And I'll just give you an example here. In my opinion, the work, because I've worked all over the world, so I would say the worst brothels are Germany and Nevada for different reasons. And again, this is my own opinion because it's from my own lived experience. It could be different for different people. Like what could work for one person would definitely not work for another person. But I think we could all agree on one thing, and that's that the more say the worker has and how they work and how they're treated is always a good thing. It can never be a bad thing to have more say. Again, New Zealand is the best because the workers there have the most say in how they are treated, the most say in the rules, and the most human rights and how they are treated as far as any other worker. They have the most rights. So if say a brothel owner in New Zealand mistreats the worker, well, she has rights, so she could sue. She could sue for harassment. She could sue because she feels like she's being harassed. And yeah, it's like New Zealand and New South Wales are really the only two places that will give the worker that much say and that much rights like any other worker. Just because we work as the adult work doesn't mean that we shouldn't have rights as anybody else when it comes to harassment. Just like you wouldn't say just because somebody is wearing something low cut with a skirt means that they have no rights, that they can be groped or worse just because they're dressed a certain way. Well, just because we're adult workers doesn't mean that it gives people the right to take advantage of us and mistreat us. Unfortunately, most brothels, other than the two countries I just told you about, do not give sex workers many rights at all, if any. We have very little say about anything and how we're treated, very little say in anything on any kind of rights. As you may or may not know, the brothels in Nevada are pretty much a 24/7 hour deal where when that bell rings, you pretty much have to get up and do your lineups, even if you've been working like all night long. I mean, there are times when they might let you sleep in or something, but for the most part, you kind of need to make those lineups because it costs a lot of money to travel there, and it costs a lot of money to go through all the checks and balances. It's not cheap. Travel's not cheap. Lodging's not cheap. You're paying your rent there. You're paying for your food there. You're paying for your doctor visits there. So you want to make those lineups, even if it's late at night and you've had no sleep. But that's unfortunate because, well, like places like Australia and Melbourne, Australia, it's not the greatest place, but they do have brothels. And there you can actually go home and go to sleep because the brothels are in the city and you don't have to work 24/7. You can just go work during the day or during the night and then go home and go to bed for 8 hours or whatever. And it's better that way because you get your sleep. And it's better that way because it's more legit. Like there's more people that work there as far as that goes, but the brothels in Nevada are horrible because it's like one person in charge, the owner, and that can be very controlling and dangerous to say the least. When you have no one to go to, when you have no one to complain to, when you have no rights, basically. I mean, I'm sure it works for some of the girls, otherwise they wouldn't still be there. But a lot of women don't realize when they're being taken advantage of. They're naive and they might think it's worth it. Maybe it is for them. Maybe for some workers, they make tons of money, but that's not the rule. That's the exception. There's always a price because let's face it, sex workers are a dime a dozen. And the brothel owner in Nevada can get over 1,000 requests a month, and they can pretty much hire whoever they want and fire whoever they want. And if you don't like completely toe the line and do exactly what they want, well, guess what? They'll just fire you and not call you back and get someone that will do whatever they want. And you can only imagine what that could be. Pretty much anything they want. That's the problem. That's the problem I have with the brothels here in the U.S. and Nevada. They're out of line. They're not. It's not really legit. I see it as organized crime because it's not really legit. Um, what other business can do that to you? I mean, even just having to be way out in the middle of nowhere in a desert and having to work 24 hours a day. What other business could ever do that? That's like a total human rights violation, if you ask me. What other job do you work where they can just get you up at all hours of the night? I mean, again, it's not like they don't want to because it's expensive to go there and it's expensive to work there. So why wouldn't you? But if it wasn't so far out in the middle of a desert, you could just go home at night and go to sleep and have a regular like shift or something. But, the casinos don't want that. That's a whole other story. I don't want to get into all that organized crime stuff, but it's not legit in Vegas at all. Um, so that's what I have against brothels. And the other problem, like as far as Germany goes, the problem there is there's so many. They're like competing with each other. They're everywhere. They're like, if you think that like the weed shops are like popping up on every single corner, I mean, yeah, because it's not just demand, they're competing. And when it's the workers that have to, let's just say they're being exploited actually, because if the owner of the brothel wants to, they can say things like, this is just to get business, because you got to remember there's so many brothels in Germany, they're all competing. So they could say stuff like, all you want, for a flat rate. So, the customer will go to that brothel because he can pay one rate and just get all he wants. Well, that's not right because it's coming out of the worker's pocket, basically. How else would how else would the brothel make money? It's the same with the ones in Nevada. They offer free limo. Well, guess what? It's not free. It's coming out of the girl's pocket, So instead of paying the house 50 up front right away, you're paying the house like 60% up front right then and there, and yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. So I don't want like the US to be like Germany, where you have brothels competing on every corner for business, because then it's coming out of the worker's pocket. I mean, if there had to be a brothel type situation, I would say that it would be for the workers, not for the owners of the brothels. It would be like a co-op type of situation where if the women want to, not like they would have to, but if they want to share expenses, rent expenses, advertising expenses, then they should be able to share those expenses and be as equals and work in a type of environment like that as equals, but not where you have someone with power over you making all the rules and taking your money and setting like minimums, and and like, well, no, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but if you don't do whatever it is the brothels want you to do, well, guess what? There's somebody else out there that will. And guess what? You're a dime a dozen. That's the cold, hard reality of it. So let's say you're a sex worker and you don't offer full service. Let's just say you might only be comfortable with doing a nude massage. Maybe you do happy ending massages, and you might offer maybe a hand job or something like that, but you don't do like full, like you don't have sex, let's just say. Well, honestly, there's no brothels like that. Sorry, none. There might be massage parlors like that, but they're all illegal. There's no such thing as a happy ending massage parlor. They're all illegal. Um, Now, some countries, Asian countries maybe, but I've never worked in an Asian country, and I don't really care about that because I am a full service provider. So I have no interest in those. Um, so yeah, I'd say I've worked in a lot of places around the world, and but never any Asian countries. I have no interest in Asian countries. Um, I would say that no, I don't want things to be like they are in say Holland, because there the girls have to rent a room, and it's like, even if you make very little money or even no money, you still have to pay for your room. So again, they're being kind of taken advantage of, I would say so. They are. You shouldn't have to give anyone any of your money if you don't want to, because it's your own private life. It's your own private, what you do in private is your own business. So yeah, that's what I have against brothels. Um, it should be up to the worker how they want to work. Co-ops, fine. If you don't mind having a pimp, maybe for some that's fine too. But again, if you don't want to work in a brothel and you don't want to have to give someone a large part of your money, then you should not have to. The more options there are, the better it is for everybody, and the more fair it is for everybody. What about somebody who, let's say they only want to do sex work very, very little, like they only want to maybe have one client a month? There are people like that. They can never work in a brothel. Again, people that only offer massages with happy endings, they could never work in a brothel. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, there are so many different types of workers, adult workers out there. You could not have a brothel for every single type of worker out there. So that would leave a very, very large portion of the population who are adult workers out of work, on the street, in bars, in dangerous situations. That's why it needs to be decriminalized, to make a very, very long story long. And I probably haven't even said enough, but I hope you get the idea, and I hope and I think you might start to understand why full decriminalization is the way it needs to be, not legalized like in Nevada. That would be horrible for more than half the workers, I would say. More than half of the workers would not be well suited in any type of legal scheme. As far as me personally, I could do great in a brothel. I could not do great in a brothel that works me 24/7 because I'm older and I need my sleep. If I don't have my sleep, I go crazy. I would be sleep deprived and I would go insane. I can't work like that. And I can't work under a man who wants favors. I would feel like that would be a huge insult. And I think that that's highly abusive, actually. Uh, Myself, I do best on my own. I don't like being around a lot of people. I don't like sitting on a couch all day long with other sex workers looking at me and coughing on me, or gossiping, or just being rude or mean. Okay, when I worked in Australia in a brothel in Melbourne, I would say probably maybe only 50% of them were like, the brothels were like okay to work in, but the other 50% were horrible. And well, I'm not going to get into all that, but I would say that if I had a choice and there were brothels here in the city, I would most likely only work in them on Friday and Saturday night when it's super busy. Other than that, I would always just work independently because it's much, much better for me. And yeah, I guess that's about it. This video's gone really long. So take care.